Lori Noreen Cox, who would later change her last name to Vallow, was born in 1973 on the 26th of June to Janice and Barry Cox. Her family was large, consisting of Alex and Adam, her brothers, and 3 sisters, Stacy, Laura, and Summer. Her childhood was quite normal, but let's skip ahead to 1992. She then married her high school boyfriend, Nelson Yanes, at the age of 19. Even though the two were madly in love with each other, after about a year into the marriage, things took a turn, and the beautiful love story ended in divorce. But Lori wouldn't stay single for long, because 2 years later, she would become a wife yet again, marrying a man named William in 1995. Things were looking like they were going to last. The two even had a son named Colby Ryan. After some time, a pattern emerged, and in 1998, Lori would divorce William. After 3 more years, Lori decided to become a wife for a 3rd time. She and Joseph Ryan tied the knot in 2001. The couple would have a child together on September 24, 2002. This time, she would give birth to a daughter named Tylee. It seemed like the 3rd time wasn't a charm, because in 2004, Lori would request a divorce. The two didn't end things on good terms. Lori told her brother Alex that her ex-husband was abusive towards her. Alex then threatened Joseph and even attacked him with a taser. Because of his actions, her brother was sentenced to 90 days in prison and 5 years probation. Lori was a very beautiful woman and was sought after by many suitors. She even participated in the Miss Texas beauty pageant in 2004. By 2005, she was single again. And even though she had 2 kids, only Tylee was in her care full-time. During that year, she would meet another man. Lori fell in love again, but this time, her new, soon-to-be husband will be relevant to the case. Charles Vallow was a hard-working man. He was handsome and came from a big family, one that meant a lot to him. Born on August 17, 1956, the two met when he was 49, but he appeared younger and energetic. The pattern emerged again, and on February 4, 2006, Lori heard wedding bells for a 4th time. Charles already had 2 children from a previous marriage, Nicholas and Zachary. Add together Lori's son Colby and daughter Tylee, the married couple would have a family of 6. This time, things were looking better. The family was happy. Charles was earning a decent income and able to take care of everyone. Overall, everyone was in a good place. By 2014, the couple decided to adopt Charles's grandnephew, Joshua Jackson Vallow, or JJ for short. And by that time, the 3 boys were living elsewhere, meaning Lori and her husband only had Tylee and JJ to look after. Because Lori didn't work and she was overall a person who got bored easily, she wanted to try something new. The family of 4 packed up their bags and decided to move to Hawaii to start their new business. They opened up a juice bar called Juice Island in Princeville on the island of Kauai. Everyone seemed to enjoy their time there. Lori became fascinated by a series of books while living there. They were called Standing in Holy Places. She was already a Mormon and heavily religious thanks to her upbringing, and the books would amplify her beliefs. By reading them, her lifestyle and overall demeanor would change. Even though the surroundings were as close to paradise as possible, the business was a failure. After a couple of years, in late 2016, they had no choice but to move back to Arizona. This was the point from which things started to fall apart in the Vallow household. Lori was still invested in the series of books written by Chad Daybell, a religious author. In 2018, Lori and her friend Melanie would attend an event called Preparing a People. This would be the place where she would meet the author of the books that seemingly changed her life and her way of perceiving the things around her. The two started talking, and seemingly Chad fancied Lori. He even went so far as to tell her that the two of them had been married in 7 previous lifetimes. The event was over, but even so, Lori and the religious author continued to message each other and keep in touch. Several weeks later, after the event took place, Charles went out of town on a business trip, and Lori took the chance to invite Chad Daybell to her home. But the get-together wasn't romantic by any means. Lori also invited Melanie and other followers of Mr. Daybell. The group spent the evening talking about the deeper meaning of God and other religious theories and teaching. But Chad couldn't keep his eyes off the beautiful new follower and would often make her the center of attention in any conversation the group would have. During their get-together, Chad told Lori that she was an eternal being and that she had had 21 previous lives, 5 of which were on planet Earth. Lori not only believed the words he offered, but she was truly excited to hear them. Lori became obsessed with this newfound purpose in life, and also obsessed over Chad. After they all went their separate ways, Lori and Chad kept texting and emailing each other. In 2018, he emailed her, sharing a chart that had something to do with the 2 categories, light and dark. And ultimately, he even graded her family based on the stats he provided. Fast forward to 2019. The Vallow marriage was on its last legs. As Lori began investing more and more time into the religion that was slowly becoming a cult, she began to detach herself from everyday life. Lori and Charles began to argue every day. On the 31st of January, he was on a business trip, being out of town for almost a week. But for the last 2 days, he wasn't able to get in contact with his wife and kids. When he arrived from the airport, there was still no sign of any of his family members, and his truck, which would normally be parked in the airport car park, was gone. He took a taxi back home, and to his surprise, the locks on the doors had been changed. His clothes were in the trash can, and his account had been drained, missing almost $35,000. This was the moment he called police, not having any other alternative. Police officers quickly arrived. Charles even told the police officers that his wife had threatened him, but of course, no one took him seriously. At this time, Lori would vanish, and she would remain off the radar for a total of 58 days. During that time, Charles filed for divorce. It was later revealed that during this period, she had flown to Hawaii with her daughter Tylee. And even after their return, Lori kept her distance from the rest of the family. But this was just the beginning of her horrific ways. On July 11, 2019, the police received a call, the man reporting that he had killed someone. The perpetrator was Alex Cox, Lori's older brother. Police arrived at Lori's new address. She had just moved there several days prior. At the time of the murder, Lori was taking JJ to school and Alex and Tylee were inside the house. Charles seemingly arrived at the house and he got into an argument with Lori's brother. During their exchange of words, Tylee went to get a baseball bat and returned shortly thereafter. Charles took it out of her hand before hitting Alex in the back of the head. Alex then grabbed his gun and shot the attacker multiple times in the chest. Charles died there in his living room, his body remaining to be found by police several minutes later. At the crime scene, when the police officers were interrogating Alex, they noticed something suspicious about something he said. He claimed that Charles hit him over the head with a baseball bat, but upon further inspection, it was clear that the injury was quite light, and Charles, being a semi-professional baseball player, would have been more than capable of inflicting serious damage if he wanted to, even killing Alex with a single swing of the bat. Alex's story stood up in court, and he was released later without any further questioning. The very next day, Nicholas and Zachary would be informed that their father had died. Lori texted the boys, deciding that she didn't want to go through the trouble of calling them. Shortly after what happened, Lori, JJ, and Tylee would move out of Arizona, and of course, they would head to Rexburg, Idaho, where Chad lived. The family of 3 settled in the area, but the story doesn't stop there. A neighbor's doorbell camera recorded footage of him and a friend playing around the neighborhood. And as it happened to Tylee, this would be the last time JJ would be seen by anyone. JJ was gone, and so was Tylee. Over the next few months, friends and family were slowly getting concerned regarding the whereabouts of the 2 kids. If Lori was asked about JJ and Tylee, she would answer saying that they were doing just fine. If anyone wanted to see them, she would lie, saying that they were at a friend's house or visiting some relatives. Two things happened during this time. The first being that Lori rented a storage unit right outside Rexburg. On October 1st, 2019, she was seen storing the children's bikes, her children's belongings, and blankets into the unit. The next day, she was seen again, but this time she was in the company of Chad Daybell. The storage facility would be visited a total of 9 times during that month by Chad, Lori, and her brother Alex. The second thing happened was on October 9th. Chad's wife, Tamara, or Tammy, was in her driveway taking groceries out of her car. At that time, a masked man holding a paintball gun walked up behind the woman. She turned around to face him, but as she did that, the man started firing at her. Tamara screamed for her husband, Chad, and as she did, he ran away. She then went to Facebook to write about what had happened earlier that day. Tamara survived the attack, but 10 days later, she would be declared dead. Her husband called 911 saying that he found her dead in their bed. Apparently, her life ended when she was asleep. Detectives came to the house, and after analyzing the situation, the death was concluded to be natural. But when asked if he would be okay with an autopsy to be performed on his deceased wife, Chad Daybell declined. The authorities were forced to accept his rejection without asking any further questions. Chad apparently quickly got over the death of his wife, and 2 weeks later, he and Lori would fly to Hawaii. There, the two would get married on the beach wearing all white. After this happened, the media and the police noticed this multitude of coincidences was a little bit strange, and they started to keep an eye on the newlyweds. During the honeymoon, and even after they went back home, when asked about the family and kids, the two started lying to everyone. Chad would tell people that Lori never had any kids, and Lori would say that Tylee had died a few years back, without any further explanation. Her story was that the boy was back in Arizona with her friend Melanie. They quickly got involved and cooperated with the Arizona Police Department. When Melanie was confronted, she seemed surprised. The woman said that she hadn't seen JJ in weeks, but what she said next put the police on high alert. Melanie told them that prior to the authorities coming to her house, she received a phone call. Lori and Chad called her, asking if she could lie for them and say that JJ was with her. The next day, holding a search warrant, they headed to Lori's house, but they were gone. The couple went back to Hawaii. From December 2019 through January 2020, the police declared the two kids missing. They raided Chad's house, confiscating his computers, journals, and cell phones. The police department also informed Lori that she would need to bring JJ and Tylee to the police station within 5 days, or she could take on the risk of being arrested. After 4 long months, on June 9, 2020, Rexburg police showed up at Chad's door at 7 in the morning. They had a search warrant for his 1960s home built on 4 acres of land. The investigators were there for a couple of hours. It didn't take long until they found human remains in the ground next to his red barn. The remains were initially unidentified, but a day later it was confirmed that they had JJ and Tylee's DNA. The kids had finally been found, but not as many of their friends and family wanted it to happen. The rest of the families were shocked. They hoped that the two would be all right, and unfortunately, that wasn't the case. At 11 a.m. on the day of the discovery, Chad Daybell tried to make a run for it, but he was quickly captured and arrested by police. He had only managed to run 1 mile from his property before he was tackled and put in handcuffs. He was charged with concealment and alteration of evidence. Both of them remained in prison, but their trial was set for 2023. According to several witnesses, after their disappearance, Lori started to refer to her children as zombies. As we mentioned earlier in the video, she would refer to dark people as such. So maybe that was the cause of their unfortunate ending.